The story begins at a school. A cold-hearted teenager receives a confession from a beautiful female student. Seeing this scene, people look. Yet another person confesses to the protagonist. It seems like he was rejected again. This week must be the 5th time, right? He has already turned down a third of the girls in the school. This guy's really annoying. Cold-hearted teenager named Taochin turns away from the beautiful girl. He says, in short, my message is very clear. I'm not interested in a relationship. You're a good person. Don't waste your energy on me. The girl who just confessed is frustrated and shouts, wait a minute, Taochin, why are you rejecting me? Then Taochin, what kind of girl do you actually like? Hearing this, Taochin responds slyly, if I tell you, will you give up? After saying that, the guy stops and turns around, declaring, I like perverts. His unexpected answer shocks everyone, including the beautiful girl. Taochin pats his chest and shouts loudly, I like perverts. Please don't misunderstand me. It's okay if someone changes themselves, but those with such thoughts only make me hate them. I like a natural pervert, someone who was born that way and will always be. Your words make that girl panic. What is Taochin joking about? We're students. How can we? How can we, in the name of Beijing Riqian, say such vulgar things? Meanwhile, another female student slowly steps forward. Her cold voice suddenly echoes, startling Taochin. You like perverts, don't you? The girl with white hair and a bright red headband is the school's discipline committee member named Bai An. She glances at the teenager before her and questions, right? You're a physically and mentally healthy student. How can you say such ridiculous things? Facing this situation, Taochin sighs inwardly. Oh, can you handle one thing at a time? Exhausted, he covers his face with his hand and pleads, please, discipline committee, forgive me. I just want to go home. But of course, discipline member Bayanan isn't so easily lenient. She chases after him. If it weren't for your foul language, would I even be here? Taochin, you violated 2 rules. She decisively writes scribbly notes in her disciplinary notebook. Violated Article 11 of the school rules. No intergender relationships. Violated Article 23. Use of obscene language. Your actions not only bring disgrace to the school, but also embarrass other students. Such vulgar behavior deserves to be nailed to the school's humiliation law. Naturally, we have no right to interfere with normal love affairs, but your foul language and depraved morals must be corrected. Bainan's accusations make Taochin temporarily, but then he continues to sigh and walk away. Yes, discipline committee, you're right. I'll go receive my punishment now. Earlier, he had rejected the confession and now turns to blame Bayanan. Why are you making things so hard for me? Seeing this, Bayanan counters, you should also reflect on yourself and forget about your meaningless actions. In reality, Taochin has his own thoughts. He has many reasons for not wanting to engage in relationships. A lonely soul, an energy-saving person, and even those around him. Like lonely souls are attracted to tangible things, and energy-saving people also long for a rosy life, not to mention me. But anyway, they are all living in reality. As for himself, he's not an ordinary person. Taochin glances at the girls behind him and continues walking, while the female students blame Bayanan, saying that as a member of the discipline committee, her stern demeanor is too intimidating, and people like her will never have a boyfriend. Hearing this, Bayanan looks coldly and quickly glances around, making everyone hurriedly turn their backs and run away. A friend of Anan approaches, questioning, Anan, are we being too rigid? Bayanan immediately shakes her head in rebuttal. Rigid? As members of the discipline committee, our duty is to maintain school discipline. If they don't disrupt it, why do we need such an attitude? Hearing this, the friend sighs. I know I can't convince you, but by the way, have you heard the rumors about that strange artist recently? Is there a painter who creates inappropriate animated films? Yes, it seems like he's from our school. They say his works are filled with all kinds of obscene and unsightly plots. A few months ago, from the context of his work, it was discovered that he was referencing scenes from our school. Upon hearing this, after a moment of silence, Bayanon appears interested and exclaims, "Ha ha ha, what's this about?" Her friend replies, "In short, if we catch him, I'll definitely twist him and take him." Her friend beside her is startled and nods. "That's right, but there are many people. Like him in the school. Catching him won't." On the screen, a hot comic character is continuously moaning, making red-faced sounds. Why can't the holy water dispel them? Don't follow those moans. They're getting louder as countless strange tentacles wrap tightly around this girl's body. A white-haired female student is drawing those grotesque scenes on her computer. She sighs just a bit more, thinking, exactly like this. Even if the scenes on campus are no longer useful, there are still many places where they can be used. Speaking of which, she automatically unbuttons her shirt and gazes at her own chest, thinking, should the drawing of the chest be more exposed? Her expression becomes more engrossed, curiosity evident in her eyes and her mouth slightly. On the bed next to her seat is a female student uniform, the bright red headband of the school's discipline committee. Pausing for a moment, she exclaims, "This is so satisfying." Surprise strikes, as it turns out to be Bayanon from the school's discipline team. In the morning, her demeanor is serious and rigid, but now as a secret comic artist, she appears completely different. A stark contrast. While drawing, she reviews the comments. Many comments from last week are dissatisfied, and always urging updates. Besides, there are numerous critical comments saying, "This is pure trash comic, all just sexual content," or "The author probably has never seen tentacles before." It's sad that the most perverted artist has lost his creative spirit. Reading those words, Bayanon gets angry. You idiots have no aesthetic sense. Do you even know what creativity is? I have no creativity because you all want to see more and more topics, so I don't draw well. Aren't tentacles just something you can only imagine? Who has ever actually seen them? Bayanon becomes so furious that she breaks her pen. At this moment, she receives a message from Editor-in-Chief Bai Trong. "I just received a notification from the editorial board that you've ranked last in this issue's popularity poll. If you remain last for several consecutive issues, we will have to consider discontinuing your work." Like a burning oil barrel, Bayanon erupts with rage. Discontinue my publication? Isn't this about backstabbing? It's so difficult. I could only have been published for many issues. Recalling all the comments earlier, she can't help but wonder why she's truly facing the risk of failure. Remembering something, she immediately turns to a corner of the room. It's come to this, so there's no other way. Only by using that method can I boost my creative inspiration. These people force me to use the forbidden ancestral magic. She approaches the printer and starts it, printing out strange patterns from a preset project. Bayanon dons a wizard's hat and, along with the printed papers, resolutely explains, "I summon the most talented creatures to this world." In her other persona as the witch Bayanon, she continuously arranges the papers on the floor based on her notes. As long as I set up the summoning battle, chant prayers, and offer blood to complete the pact, it'll be done, right? At this stage, she still doesn't fully trust the effectiveness. The summons printed out should work, right? After all, it's really impossible to summon something too terrifying. She remembers the incantation. Kneeling on both knees, Bayanon begins loudly chanting the summoning spell from hell, a demonic aid from hell, a sinister voice invoking destruction. Thus, a song from hell praising the grotesque body. The slave relying on my inherited name speaks up. Here, the fierce lady bites her own finger, causing fresh blood to flow out. Use my inherited blood to appear. As soon as that fresh drop of blood touched the summoning circle, a magical light began to shine, enveloping the entire world. Bayanon was momentarily amazed, covering her mouth. Wow, she really can summon. Is that a tentacle? She couldn't help but imagine a bizarre creature was about to appear and began to worry. Although tentacles are the most ubiquitous theme, directly summoning a tentacle monster is too thrilling. If it's that big, it could kill people. But after a moment of hesitation, Bayanan still sighed and shook her head. No, now is not the time to back down. With the help of that high libido, I am sure I can overcome the shackles in a single blow to make the readers of my comics die of frustration. Elsewhere, with a steaming bowl of noodles in front, suddenly a distant voice echoed, "Hey, here's a smooth, fragrant slime that can be addictive. Tentacles covered in slime will twist even if they only touch lightly. Hey, you perverted thing." Purple light flashed along with that sound. The protagonist was eating their noodles, clueless. And in the blink of an eye, the guy appeared in Bayanan's summoning spell. The two stared at each other, simultaneously exclaiming, "Huh?" After a moment of silence, the protagonists turned their head to look at the chaotic drawings on the floor with a sly smile. It seems I've discovered something terribly horrible. The legendary Iron Discipline Committee actually has a hidden identity. Like the saintly lady under the pen name Baytrack was once a very famous comic book author. Hearing these words, Bayanan quickly backed away in panic. The protagonist smiled and continued, "So it turns out it's you." She was so panicked that she broke out in a cold sweat, but could only pretend to be ignorant. "What? Bayantron? You must have mistaken me for—" The protagonist stood up, directing their gaze toward the bed, where her school uniform and bandages were on the other side. There, once again, Bayanan smirked with a stiff smile. "It's just a cosplay uniform, a mere coincidence." The protagonist turned back to the ground, pointing to a sketch on the ground over there. "That sketch probably depicts our school's teaching building." Bayanan, despite pulling her hair in frustration, explained, "It's normal that some architectural styles are similar. So your ID card is also here." The protagonist bent down to pick up her ID card. "Here you go." Bayanan could only helplessly shout, "Why is my room so messy? Don't look at that photo." She hurriedly snatched her ID card. Internally, Bayanan was completely devastated. "It's ruined. It's ruined. Damn it! Why did you summon this? What mistake did I make at which step? Today I just taught you a lesson and now you find a loophole. I will definitely take this opportunity to get revenge. Just you wait." Seeing her panicked appearance, the protagonist just recalled the main issue and asked seriously, "Did you just use magic?" "To summon me, right? Although it's a bit hard to believe, I have something to ask you." Hearing those words, Bayanan gritted her teeth inwardly, thinking, "He also wants to know more of my secrets." She immediately grabbed a nearby baseball bat and her voice also turned cold. "When it comes to this matter, there's no other way to talk about magic. I also know a bit about memory-erasing magic." As she spoke, she stepped closer, surprising the protagonist. "Why is it that everything at your comic artist's house is like this? Isn't this what you call magic?" But then an incident occurred when she stepped on a piece of paper on the ground, causing her body to lose balance and fall forward. The protagonist's thoughts slowed down. A lonely soul will be moved by sincerity, and an energy-saving advocate also wants a rosy life. But anyway, all of them are living in reality. As for me, following your train of thought, her beautiful body is gradually enveloping me, so she is not an ordinary person. After that fall, Bayanan completely pressed her body against the protagonist's in an extreme way. She hastily blushed and stood up. "Enough already. Why are your old tricks showing up like this?" But immediately after, Bayanan's eyes filled with surprise. Something soft had tightly wrapped around her thigh. Bayan A seemed unable to believe it, gazing mesmerized at the objects that had just appeared. "Are these tentacles? What's going on here?" Standing behind the protagonist's back, tentacles grew from their body, and he exclaimed, "If you've been spotted by you already, then I don't need to explain much further." In Bayanan's astonished eyes, less tentacles appeared, and the protagonist stood up. "This is exactly what I wanted to ask. Those tentacles appearing on my body inexplicably, are they related to you?" Others in this situation might be so frightened they'd wet their pants. But in Bayanan's eyes, gazing at the protagonist, there was excitement and thrill about the tentacles are real tentacles. "So you are a tentacle monster? Then my summoning spell wasn't wrong at all." Her attitude also left the protagonist speechless, never expecting someone to be so happy about tentacles. Bayan ignored the tentacles tightly wrapping around the protagonist's body, still excitedly said, "So this is the feeling of being wrapped by tentacles, the state of being tightly embraced by flesh." Unable to bear the sight any longer, the protagonist shouted, "Stop, or else these tentacles won't be able to retract." After some explanations, Bayan also understood the ins and outs of the situation. In other words, you also don't know why you became like this. And this is also why you always reject the confessions of those female students, right? The protagonist, sitting opposite, nodded. Exactly. When I feel excited or aroused, those tentacles appear on my body. Bayan, still sketching, continued to ask, "And what about those perverted jocks in school?" Mentioning that, the protagonist sighed, "It's just because I want to reject their confessions." The young man helplessly thought to himself, "At first, I thought that after entering university, I could love freely, but unexpectedly, these tentacles sprouted out of nowhere just before the school year started. So, the reason why humans develop tentacles can't be due to bad luck. How can one have a romantic relationship in this situation? How can we hold hands and hug without any excitement? The price of that summoning is being locked up like in a zoo from a civilized human perspective. More tragically, being sliced into sashimi or taken for research. Meanwhile, Bayan paints a picture of the hot girl along, with tentacles, and asks what the painting looks like. The main character blushes, sighs, and says, "Don't take me to try anymore." But Bayan continues her drawing quest despite hearing that. "Yes, although I summoned you here, your transformation into a tentacle monster has nothing to do with me. Turning a normal person into a magical creature is not something I can do. In fact, I haven't even heard of it." However, the main character, feeling sad, asks, "You're not lying to me, Bayan?" Bayan decisively nods. "It's not about using magic to transform. If I want to transform, I will. However, there is. You were summoned by magic, identified as a demonic artifact with lust. Moreover, your tentacles don't belong to this world, that's for sure. Naturally, being labeled a lustful demon by the girl surprises and shocks the main character because he is inherently solitary, has never accepted a confession or held hands, and Bayan's voice becomes agitated. But this good thing allowed me to encounter a humanoid tentacle monster. Weren't you supposed to be established as a heavenly sacred being or something? I decide that you will be a reference for my future works. Just by observing you, I'm sure I can create pieces that are both authentic and playful for my comics. Finally, you're saved." After a moment of stunned silence, the guy strides out of the room. "I'm really sorry I couldn't do it. If there's a chance, I'll contact you again." But immediately after, "Stop," uttered by Bayan. Indeed, his steps become stiff and stop, right before the room door. The main character's confused, wondering what's going on and why he can't move. He only sees Bayan placing her hand on his shoulder. The girl, looking dangerous, softly says, "Do you think summoning is that simple? To prevent summoned objects from getting out of control, there must be something like a contract." Bayan's hand grasps his seductive tentacles and asks, "Do you think you can escape?" Feeling the tension of her soul touching his back, the main character screams, "What are you doing? A contract? What kind of contract?" Meanwhile, Bayan gently brushes and says, "It's a special summoning contract. Once something happens to me, you'll have more problems. As long as I want, we can collaborate. When I say something, you perform it." She speaks while removing her shirt to reveal her smooth shoulders. For example, if I want to do something, you have to do it on this side. The main character is completely unable to control his body and mimics her actions exactly. The guy blushes and panics. "Stop! Stop! Stop! What's wrong with my body? Why can't I control it? Anyone seeing these sketches would be very pleased to watch." The main character's eyes become angrily threatening, but he also doesn't want people to know his identity as a real-world artist. "Aren't you afraid I'll reveal everything?" Facing this threat, Bayan laughs. "Do you really? Think about the consequences. Even if you perform the same actions, males and females have different body structures. the same action can lead to different results. Do you know what miracles will happen? For example, she says, then smiles enchantingly and scratches her secret spot, making noises. This situation is truly something children shouldn't see. Naturally, the main character, with his body being controlled, performs similar actions. His eyes well up with fear from the bizarre emotions arising. Finally, he has to scream helplessly, "I give up." Bayan stands behind him, nodding in satisfaction. In reality, her inner self isn't as calm as her outward appearance. She's also worried, wondering if she's going too far. But summoning him has become a reality, and now there's no other way. After hesitating for a moment, she becomes resolute, telling herself she can't miss this opportunity. She wants to become the top creator of this underground comic world, to perfect herself, and will do any. Then, Bayan gently snaps her fingers, and immediately, the main character feels his body lighten and regain control. "You're now free from the magic," Bayan continues. "Anyway, I'll let you go first. Wait for me to plan the next steps." Hearing this, the main character's face darkens with frustration. Do I still need to have a plan? If you want to participate, just start directly. The main character's words and smile make Bayan curious. Start what? Then, her tentacles tightly wrap around him. Do you want to tell me it's magic? Isn't this the kind of thing we're dealing with? My body is being lifted into the air with countless tentacles. Bayan starts to panic, horrified. Who would want to do this to you now? Seeing her panic, the main character replies, "Ha, not bad at first, but why are you resisting so fiercely now? Don't worry, even though I can control these tentacles, they're not exceptional." Bayan is completely powerless and cannot control them. She tries to suppress the bizarre sensations these tentacles bring to her body. But if it's like this, what should I use to draw? My hind legs. Hearing this, one of her tentacles lowers her arm, as the main character says. Then let go of one of your arms. Bayan, both angry and embarrassed, blushes. Her legs are still suspended in the air by the tentacles, in an inverted position. She helplessly cries out, "Enough! Let me down!" After a while, both temporarily set aside their initial grievances, and a new storyline is created by Bayan, a scene of a girl being hung upside down by tentacles. Bayan immediately uploads this drawing online and receives feedback. She happily exclaims, "After using you as a reference, the reviews have indeed improved a lot. But why are there still people like this?" she wonders as she reads the comments. Wow, the tentacle textures have improved so quickly. Did you buy Octopus for reference? It's amazing. If artists do this, there's no need for further practice. "I'm blown away," Bayan exclaims. "And this name too? Isn't this exaggeration?" The guy named Bantu Kwai said he had never seen such tentacles. "I only thought of the summoning technique. It seems like the effectiveness has increased significantly now." Suddenly, Bayan turns to look at the main character suspiciously. "Why have you been tapping your phone since we started? Moreover, why are you so scared?" The main character nervously stares into his phone, awkwardly shaking his head. "Is there something like that? I was just replying to some messages." But in reality, he's very annoyed and is trying to delete his previous comment. That's the comment saying that the author has never seen a tentacle, so how could anyone know she is an artist? They didn't expect she would dig her own grave. Moreover, the system's attempt to delete your comment was a little while later. Bayan unhappily played with the tentacles and then provided comments. However, based on her habit of painting, I belong to the type who observes and references. Even if I have personal experience, I still couldn't see the full picture. For a localized area like this, it's fine. But if you want to expand it to the whole body, then buy yourself a doll. Hearing that, the main character loudly shouted to stop, saying that if you keep talking about the review, I won't just sit quietly, and at this moment, the girl excitedly handed him a draft and said, "By the way, I've also drawn a comic draft. What do you think of it?" He took the draft, and the main character exclaimed, "Wow, that's pretty fast. Let me take a look during the process as you read the story." Bayan unexcitedly stood beside, To observe, however, the expression on the main character's face gradually became calm. At the end, his aura suddenly disappeared. He vanished completely, leaving Bayanan dumbfounded.